So my name's Karen. I run a company called Future Coders. I'm here to talk about career journeys in software development, and I think sort of following on from Mike and Ahmed, I want to kind of talk about how you can make that transition. As Joe said, it might be that today you're thinking, actually, you know, I'd really love to have a go at this. This is something I might like to do, but I've never done any before. How do I get started? So I can talk a little bit about that. What do I point this at? Oh, it's there. It worked. I just thought I'd talk just very quickly through my career journey, because my career journey, like maybe some of yours, where I was in sixth form, was not digital at all. As you can probably see, I'm quite a lot older, but strangely, a lot of opportunity to learn about computer science when I was at school in the 70s. So it just kind of, it's gone in a wave, it disappeared and it's coming back. So I did A-levels, did English, Maths and Art, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I thought I'd just kind of do a range of fairly sort of generic stuff, and I thought English and Maths, everyone needs those. Loved art, and I wanted to be an interior designer. When I left school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and took quite a while about it, but I then went to work for a company called Telspec, who were based in Rochester, who were a telecommunications company, and they were kind of cutting edge, but they just bought their first computer, the first ever computer, and they needed somebody to do something with it. And so they took me on the basis that I had Maths A-level, and I seemed like I was quite keen, and I was able to become their database administrator, system administrator on this sort of brand new system. So I learned all about this stuff that was just completely new to me. So I kind of fell into it by accident. I found that I absolutely loved it. I was problem solving, I was writing database, I was writing shell scripts and writing database reports, that sort of stuff. So then I decided, okay, well, I think I need to go and learn a bit more about this. It's all very well learning this bit, but I probably need to know a lot of stuff around it. So I went to Mid-Kent College and I did an HND in industrial computing, and that was absolutely brilliant. It was heavily, BAE systems were heavily involved in it. It was very industrially based, so you could see why you were learning what you were learning. I'm learning this, and this industry uses it this way. It wasn't totally theoretical. We had loads of people came in from industry. It was a brilliant, brilliant course. And when I passed that, I went to work for a company called Microspot, who are still based in Maidstone. And this was another wonderful opportunity that I would never have anticipated. They were working on the very early Macintosh computers. So this was in the 80s, the ones that were little boxes with a screen at the top. And we worked on three-dimensional kitchen design and interior design software. So I'd kind of got to where I wanted to be when I left school. I was working with interior design, so that was absolutely brilliant, but I was programming, and that was really, really exciting. So I worked there for a while. And then my product that I was working on was bought out by another company, and they said, we want you to come and work for us. They didn't work where I lived, and I just wasn't in a position to move at the time. So they said, that's fine, you can work from home, which I did for 3 months and absolutely hated it. Because working in isolation is not my way of working. So while I was thinking about what to do next, I thought, let's see if I can maybe help other people a little bit. And so I went on to Mid-Kent College and did a bit of teaching. I've got these two around the wrong way. Mid-Kent were, again, very forward thinking at the time and taking on people who had, didn't necessarily have the qualifications, but had the knowledge. And so they took me on to teach across the board. I was teaching at undergraduate level, I was teaching A-level, teaching BTECs, the equivalent of those at the time. And I did my teaching qualification, and they put me through my degree as well, which I only had to do the last year of because I'd done an HND already. So this was the first 2 years. That was my last year of my degree. I absolutely loved teaching, and I loved the fact that I was helping others and putting other people sort of in a position where they could perhaps go through some of those things that I'd really, really enjoyed. So although I'd really wanted to go back to development, I took a career move and ended up teaching. And I did that for many, many years. So I've taught many students of your age. So I worked mostly with 16 to 19-year-olds, and some a little older, some a little younger. And that was absolutely brilliant. Then went from there to work for the Challenge. Now, any of you that done National Citizen Service, or if anyone's heard of National Citizen Service, the Challenge were the people who brought that, who designed that and made that in the first place. And we ran a socially integrated apprenticeship system, and I managed their digital apprenticeships. So that was a chance for me to look into a different type of training and a different way of learning. So absolutely enjoyed doing that, but my end goal was really to start this company. So the thing that came up over and over again when I was working with 16 to 19-year-olds was the difficulty that you had from doing your A-levels or doing your vocational qualifications and getting into a job. So very, very few, and the number that did it went down over the years. So when I first started, which was actually in the 1990s, quite a few of our students actually went on and went straight into industry, and they were snapped up because perhaps they weren't quite so. They were in a market where there weren't so many people, so they were snapped up for their knowledge and their skills. As we went on, that became more and more difficult, and it gets to the point where if you didn't go to university, you just weren't going anywhere. And I became really, really worried about that. And so while I was at the college, I started trying to add extracurricular stuff to sort of increase the experience that students had. So I used to find projects. So we might find a school that needed a website, a charity that needed an app, or something that we could do, and then I would get a group of students together. We'd do that out of normal learning time, and we'd work on that project. Ahmad was involved in some of that, for which we were really, really grateful. And I could see the power of that, the amount of difference that it made. One, to the students in terms of motivation, hugely motivation, but two, when those students got to the end of their course and they were looking for somewhere to go in terms of working, it was those students that had been on those projects that got snapped up for apprenticeships and got snapped up for jobs straight away. They were the ones that were able to do that, to go straight into the workplace rather than going on to university and then trying to move on from there. So I considered that to be really, really important. With a full teaching timetable, I couldn't really expand it very much, so I decided, when I was doing this, I decided to form this company. This bit was brilliant because it got me into a lot of companies, and it got me learning about how you need to train for the workplace. So this was a really good opportunity. So Future Coders is the company that I'm running now. What we do is we do teach, and we are about coding, but what we're actually doing is teaching the whole sort of process of software development through projects. So the idea is that you do a kind of a work experience with us, you work on projects, and through those projects, that's how you learn to code. Well, that's how you learn to be a developer. So the reason that this is important is because that commitment to learning is what's going to stand you out from anybody else when you're moving on. Even if your next step is university, and then you're sort of 3 years later you're coming out and looking for a job, the fact that you've done that work experience, the fact that you've actually put some of your own time into it, will make you stand out. So work experience, as far as I'm concerned, is really, really important. It's important from the point of view of making you stand out, but it's also important from the point of view of you finding out whether this is what you want to do. You might be really inspired today and think, this is absolutely what I want to do. Where do I go next? Well, going and getting some work experience is a way of finding out whether it's something you want to do. It's a way of at least starting to think, well, okay, do I enjoy doing this? Is it actually for me? Is it the sort of thing that I want to do? And from there, how can I get better and how can I move on? So work experience will help you to learn about the industry. It'll help you to develop your skills. If you want to learn to code, I think there's no better way than learning with other people. So I don't learn online, which is probably different from a lot of people, but I just find it very, very difficult. One, I don't have a motivation. Unless there's something useful, some purpose for what I'm making, I find it very, very difficult to do it. And I find it quite difficult to actually kind of learn for the sake of it. I need to learn for a purpose. So for me, actually having a project and working together with others, that's what will help me learn best. Everyone learns differently, but that's the way I learn. If a work experience is competitive, then it's probably going to be likely to be a better experience. So getting work experience is really important and will help you. But if you can get a work experience where you actually have to compete to get in, you're probably going for a very high quality one. So we have a recruitment process. It's selective. We only take 4 students on each project, and each project lasts 3 months. So you have to kind of get through that first stage. You'll find a lot of companies that are offering work experience will be very similar. They'll be looking for particular things, looking for you, sort of showing that you've made an effort. Sorry, that was a little bit rambling on this. If you want to ask questions at any time, then do. I'm quite happy to answer them. What we're trying to aim at with our work experience programme is not a real work experience programme in terms of you're going into a big company and you're kind of seeing what it's like. You're coming to us to get an experience of working, and that's the idea. That's the idea behind the project. What we aim to do is to get a group of students together. We do have a professional developer, so we have a lead developer who will take on a project. It's on the next slide actually, I won't go too far into it. But we have a lead developer, so you are working in an environment where you are working in a proper project team. We do actually have clients. We try to mostly have charity clients, community groups, those sorts of things. That's our target, but we do have normal commercial paying clients as well. We aim to try to help you get to a better technical understanding, practical technical skills, bit of a knowledge of the industry. So what we do is we simulate the industry. We aren't a full-blown development company, but we simulate what happens. So you're working in a team that's working in the same way as you would be likely to see in any other workplace. That helps you to get a bit of a knowledge of the industry, and more importantly, a bit of knowledge of whether this is what you really want to do. It also gives you an opportunity to get an idea of your preferred area of work. So you've heard in the talks so far, you can become a front-end developer, you can become a back-end developer, you might be more interested in the database side of it. There are different particular languages or different sort of technologies that you want to work with. Our projects are full-stack projects, and they need people to have skills in all sorts of different areas. So if you came on a work experience, you would learn a little bit about all of those areas. You'd find out which one you're most interested in, and then we'd give you little tasks that you could manage and through which you could learn and you could get better. So it's a way to kind of find out what you like to do. On the other side, you can build your communication skills. You're working in a team. You have to learn, you have to manage your own learning, and you have to manage your own workload. You will get every opportunity to solve problems and to improve those problem-solving skills. And the big thing that we find with all the students that work with us is the increase in confidence. Actually being able to stand up and say, I think the big one is at the beginning of a project, most students will say, will be too scared to say they can't do something. And by the end, they're quite happy to say they can't do something because they know actually that's how you learn. Being able to say, well, I've got this is what I'm going to be doing today. I've really got a problem with this. And I'm not really quite sure where to go next. Somebody else in the team might say, actually, I had that problem last week. I can help you out. So these are the sorts of things that our work experience programme is about. I just thought I'd quickly just say how I got my work experience. So my personal work experience, and I think this is something that you also need to be thinking about. It was sort of through a number of different areas. I've had lots of other jobs over the years, but these were probably the teenage ones. So I worked in Sainsbury's. They didn't put me on the tills, they put me in the kitchen at the back, which I thought was quite... All my friends were working on the tills, I was a bit upset about that. I worked at Superdrug, I worked at McDonald's when it first came to Maidstone, worked in pubs, worked on farms in the summer, and I did a lot of temping. So I kind of worked as a temp, just doing general office stuff. And again, that kind of gave me quite an insight into the technologies that were coming in the workplace and made me think about what I was interested in doing. The other thing that I've done a lot of, I'm a serial offender for volunteering. I absolutely love doing it. These are ones that I probably did, that I did when I was very young. So I helped out at Brownies, because my mum was Brownie leader. I used to do a befriending, I worked with befriending old people who were in hospital, who were there permanently. I used to sing in a church choir. I still sing in a choir, but we actually got paid for singing at weddings, which was quite good. When we're not very much, about 50p, something like that, but we did get paid. I did a lot of campaigning, and I did a lot of campaign work for Oxfam, Fair Trade, and Greenpeace. So these were all the things that I was interested in. All of these things make a huge difference on your CV. Pointing at that rather than that. So getting back to future coders, what we're trying to do is to nurture coding talent. So the idea is it's a learning experience. It's a work experience, but it's a learning experience, and we do that through this simulated work experience. The idea is to kind of learn how to code, and then put that into practice. How are we doing? Our model is basically that we take a need for an app or take a need for a web-based solution or some sort of software solution. We form a project team. We have our project lead, who is a programmer with he's a developer with 10 years of experience. He was working in the gambling industry, and this is his way of paying back a much more rewarding experience from what he was doing before. We have 4 to 6 students on each project. 4 is the ideal, but sometimes we can take on 1 or 2 more, depending on space. We have volunteer developers, and Maggie, who was supposed to be doing this talk, does volunteer with us, which is why I'm here in her place. She just said, I don't think I can do it, and I've come instead. She's not very well. We have office space, so we work in Chatham, and we work in a co-working space. And what that means is that we can use that office space, and you're actually coming to an office, you're working in something that's again, you know, it's a realistic working situation. What I wanted to do was, I'm not sure how quickly I can do this. I apologise if I go over too long. So these 2 people are students who've worked on projects that we've done in this way. Maggie, who should have been doing the talk today but isn't very well, what I was going to do, it's going to take too long, so I was actually going to read out what she was going to tell you about. When she came to college, so I taught Maggie quite a few years ago, when she came to Mid-Kent College. She came because she wasn't able to learn programming. She had an idea that she wanted to be a games designer. She wanted to learn programming. She couldn't do it at school because her school didn't do it, so she came to college, and then she learnt to program, and she didn't like it. So she thought, actually, perhaps this isn't for me. But when she was in her second year, we had this very small charity came along who was doing a campaign on women's safety, and they wanted an app that people could crowdsource. You could crowdsource comments and add those to a map of the Medway towns, and those comments were about whether this place was safe or whether it was less safe. It was called the Big Sister app, and the 2 ladies that were developing the app came in and said, we would really, really like a female team. Now, if you teach IT or you teach computer science, you know you don't have very many females, and that's something that's got to change because there is no real logical reason for that. But I had to kind of scrape together all of the girls in all of our groups to try and form this team. Maggie was one of the girls that came forward, and she actually ended up as the leading light on the team. The thing that she loved about it was working on the project itself, working in the team. And she found that actually when she was in that situation, she loved coding. So in a classroom situation, she'd hated it. In that sort of situation, she loved it. We got the app, we built the app, we had a launch in Chatham. There is a video of the launch, and it's on this presentation, which I will leave if anyone wants to see it. But through that, she then decided, rather than going to university, she was going to apply for apprenticeship. She got her apprenticeship. She finished her apprenticeship, ended up as a junior developer at the age of 19 or 20. She's now been promoted, and she does a lot of work, a lot of really good work for Space Between, who have recognised her skills and have rewarded her with promotions. So she's an absolute shining example of somebody who really put themselves out there. Liam, very similar. So we had an opportunity to create a website for a particular project. He was the person that kind of just threw himself in and said, look, I think I really want to learn this. Had never done it before. He learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, learned it in a really short space of time, developed this really brilliant website with the help of 2 or 3 other students, and again, delivered it. He left college, didn't want to go to university, didn't necessarily want to do an apprenticeship, but he went and got himself some work experience at a company in London in front-end development. After a few months of work experience, they were very impressed with him and they took him on. So he managed to convince them to give him some work experience. Both of these students credit working on those projects as part of what got them to where they were. So what I kind of wanted to get across was the importance of doing this sort of thing, importance of putting yourself out there. We work Saturdays and Monday evenings so that no student can not come to us because they don't have the time off school or college. So it's all outside.
And where are you based?
We're based in Chatham. What I just want to quickly say, and I'm not going to spend too much longer on this, is if you haven't done any coding at all, but you think, actually, I really want to get into it, and this might be a way to get into it, what I do is that the selection process is that you need to show me that you have, or show me and Garrick, our developer, you need to show us that you have actually gone out there and tried to learn. You've actually taught yourself something. So it might be that you've taught yourself online and you've kind of got going that way. What we also do is we run a load of workshops, which is where the workshop come out. So I'll set up workshops and people can come and work through those workshops. You can come and learn a particular thing and then you can continue and work on your own projects. And giving that commitment and that time is what gives what makes us think, well, actually, yes, you're a good candidate for this. So through the workshops, I can select people.
And do the people have to pay?
It depends on the workshops, and if I try wherever I can, I try to get funding. So in Medway, I've got funding, so there's no cost to young people. If I can set one up somewhere else where we can get funding, there's no cost.
Okay. So try to do it for free, but otherwise.
We try and do everything for free if we can.
I'm going to have to wrap you up.
Yes.
The bells
Yes.
go, but I just want to ask. Thank you. Thank you so much.